It's cracking.
My name's Shmuel Lavner.
Now, I think the guys
Here-
know you from last time.
Yeah,
you're
here I'm
pretty
back.
famous by now.
Here I'm back again. The question is, just to start everything off, is that Hashem knows the future. God knows the future, right? So that means he created a story. A story. He made this story. He made every part of it and the future, right? Isn't that what it means if he knows the future?
Yeah, you're touching on a lot of important stuff here. So, if God knows the future, then what's the meaning of our actions, right? And then there's kind of another question: is like, do we even have free choice? Do we even have free will? Why wouldn't that be obvious? In other words, maybe we're conscious, right? So if you don't have free will, then what is your consciousness? I guess you're like watching a show. It's almost like watching a movie or
Yeah.
something, or or reading a book.
Mhm.
You're watching what's happening. You're discovering the story as it unfolds. So for some reason, that's exactly what's happening with us. We're just watching a predetermined story, right? Um,
Can I say one thing?
sure.
Time for Hashem, for God, is different. It's not the same as what we think of time.
Right.
So that's already an answer. It means the way we would answer, the way we're gonna understand this thing, is not how God is gonna understand this thing. God is something else, something above every single reality that we have. I'm sorry, I'm like answering my own
Sure.
question,
No, answer the question.
but you can't find an answer. Like this is, I think this is
No, but
also.
you're answering the question.
But this is also the thing about my belief in God. I don't believe that God's the same as me. He's beyond. He is everything and everything that doesn't make any sense. God made not things that don't make sense.
Mm.
He made things not make sense. So this is how he created the world. And to try to understand God is the most stupidest thing, I'm thinking. Probably the most stupidest thing you could ever do in your life. And I don't blame atheists because they're like, you can't understand God. God doesn't make any sense. True. He doesn't make any sense. So why waste, like, don't waste your time.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about, right?
Yeah.
There's a question of what are you, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you, right? So let's say we're not going to talk about God.
Mm-hmm.
What are you? Do you have free will? It's a very valid question. So we don't understand God, no problem. But do we have free will? What are you, right?
I'm just thinking it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter what you are. You don't want to.
Why? Why does it matter? Because it's just going to drive you insane. Why do you need to know who you are? Why can't you just accept your status in life? Whatever that is, you know how you feel.
Maybe if you know who you are, you'll know what to pursue, right?
Okay. I mean, true. That's a good point.
What if you're I don't know, what's a good example? Like, let's say you're, I don't know, there's these olden day stories of like a son of a king that was kidnapped to another kingdom, and he grew up, you know, he grew up serving the other kingdom, and he became important. And then somebody comes and tells him one day, you know, that actually your family is all like from another king, you know, they're from that kingdom, and they were killed, and your sister is still alive, and she's being persecuted, but go save her. It's like, if you know who you are, then you know what to choose. You know what you should do with your life, right? It will inspire you to make better choices. If you understand God to the extent that a human can understand God, we're not trying. In other words, maybe God wants us to understand Him. Maybe God wants us to learn about Him. Why? Because then maybe we'll prioritize him if we'll understand how he's our life source. If he'll understand that he's not just giving us life and something removed from us, but something that's connecting to us, and maybe God wants to have a relationship with us, right? That's perhaps
Yeah.
something we should explore,
Right.
right? Right?
Yeah.
So these are important questions, I think.
Yeah. See
Um,
that?
you're right that in a sense this could make somebody go mad, and that's partially why Kabbalah was kept secret for many years, because it because it brings up these questions, right? But the way we study Kabbalah today, which is in the form of Hasidus, is that we don't necessarily study it in the form of a questions answers, like that it's coming to answer life's questions. We study it in the form that it's explaining to us about our purpose in the world, and it teaches us what God wants from us and how we can connect to God, how we can make this ladder, so to speak. How we can make this ladder from us to God. And by learning all these things, we find the answers. In other words, if you would have had the question, that would be the answer. But we don't really learn it in a form of questions and answers. And that's perhaps why some people, maybe that's why it's not so popular. Maybe that's why some people think of it as boring, because the way entertainment is built, I happen to be doing a lot of research on this because I got into social media. I'm making these videos, so I have to learn about how to make things interesting. If you want to get somebody to stay with you, you have to make a problem in their brain. You have to ask a question. When you ask a question, the person doesn't know the answer to it, and their brain wants to know what's going on, right? And sometimes you can create that problem. A very explicit way would be just asking a question, but another way would just be presenting a piece of information which creates a bubble in your mind to try to figure out why. Oh yeah, why is that, right? It's like if I'll tell you, um, did you know perhaps
Wait, are you suggesting that God did that to us? That God has tried to entertain us by giving us all these questions?
That's not what I'm trying to get to. We
I'm
could talk
like,
about that.
okay.
What I'm trying to say is I'm coming off the point of perhaps why Hasidus and Kabbalah might come across as boring, because it's not coming necessarily to answer questions. It's coming to just explain reality. So if somebody just comes and starts telling you how reality works, that might be boring, right? Because it's not. It's like, okay, I don't care. Like, fine, whatever, I don't care. When you have a problem in your mind, like just before in this conversation, you were saying, like, yeah, let me just live my life. I believe in God. Everything is good. Why do I need to know this? And then I presented a problem, and the problem is that maybe if you would know who you really are, then you would prioritize things. And you realize, oh, it's a problem. Yeah, maybe I should know who I am. So suddenly now you have a reason to try to figure out who am I really.
Yeah, but
right?
the thing is
Problems make a demand for a solution.
but like, come on. If you're living in the world like a normal human being and not worried about like high up stuff, like your father, you're human. You gotta take care of your body. You gotta eat your food. You gotta take care of your children. Before I said you're a father, you have things who you are. Now, what I mean,
But how do you know what to prioritize? And
I guess that's
how do you know in which way to raise your children, right?
yeah.
How do
That's
you want
good
to educate your children?
questions.
Do you want to educate your children and tell them just enjoy your life, or do you want to educate your children and tell them do meaningful things, be a good person? I once read this article of a guy who wrote that he was doing research into psychopathy, psychopaths. He was a PhD, and he was looking through different scans, brain scans. He was learning, what a psychopath brain looks like versus a non-psychopath brain. And then I can't remember exactly why this happened, but he was looking through a bunch of brain scans of his own family. Either they did it voluntary, or I'm imagining that he just, part of, for fun, would got brain scans of his family, and he was looking through it, and he found a couple of psychopath brains in his family. And he looks at the names, the IDs, whatever, he matches it, and suddenly he notices his own brain is a psychopath brain. And then he's like, me, psychopath? No way, it can't be. I'm a moral person, I'm a good person. And then he like thought back, and he started noticing how some of the, perhaps some of the experiences he had in his life were some sort of psychopathic tendency. Had some
What made him a psychopath?
psychopath is something somebody's born with.
He's explaining like why he's a psychopath, or
He
what
suddenly
was the
noticed.
reason he is a psychopath.
No, he looked back at his life and he noticed not the reason. Somebody who's a psychopath is born being a psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
It's a brain. It's a person who's less emotional and much more decision oriented. But he didn't go out and become a serial killer, right? Why is that? Because he was educated. Psychopaths are very intellectual. They're not they don't have very strong
Emotional.
emotions. So they don't necessarily have the same human emotional instincts that most people would have naturally, right? That's how they can perhaps come to taking somebody else's life, because they don't have that innate thing inside of them that prevents them from doing that. But if they're educated and they're taught that this is morality and you want to be a good person because this is what you should try to be, then they'll be a good person.
Yeah.
Right?
I see that.
So if you know what you are, then that can really help you make the right decisions in life and the correct decisions in life, and what you should be doing in life.
But then, then it comes down to, why should I believe what you're telling me, who I am? Where do you get that? Where do you get that information from? And do you believe in, what? Like,
so first of all, this is Kabbalah. This is a tradition which is passed down from generation to generation. It was kept hidden, as we mentioned, for many years, as you were saying, because it brings up certain questions, and when people study it, they start thinking about
but these
crazy
questions live without Kabbalah.
Right, but
Because
some
we
people
are
can
all, because a good point that I'm about to make is that, like, we're all godly, and we're all going to have these questions because we're all connected to the godliness. Like,
right.
we don't need, we are, I don't know, maybe it's far-fetched,
Listen,
but like we're all connected to it.
These questions,
and we're going to have these questions either way, we learn Kabbalah or not.
But as you were saying earlier, like, you can just move on. Okay.
I'm a special case. Maybe I'm a special case.
No, I think
no?
majority of people, they just, they have these questions, they move on in life. You just live your life. Most people don't focus their entire life on these questions.
Yeah.
For a couple of years, I was doing something else. When I was younger, I was very into these questions. I was looking into this. I was studying all this. But for a couple of years, I wasn't doing this. And I just continued moving on my life. Got married, had my kids, and that's it. And as I got back into it, and you start thinking about these things again, you start thinking about it.
Like,
you want to know what's really going on, what's happening.
I think when it comes down to these deep questions, most people don't bother themselves with it. They can't figure it out.
Exactly. So you're saying yourself that these are questions which, if you don't engage them, then they kind of fade away and you move on.
I guess maybe understanding this stuff could stop people from really going insane. Maybe.
So that is why Kabbalah was kept secret for many years, as we said.
What does that mean? Who decided to keep them secret? What does that mean, keep them secret?
The people who were passing down this generation from generation to generation.
Who? Who's passing it down?
The Kabbalists. The people.
Is this written down?
That it was.
Or
hidden?
Is it all in minds that have been teaching it? Or is it something like...
For many generations, it wasn't written down. And then it started being written down. And people were told not to read it until you reach a certain age, 40.
Mm-hmm.
And there were many books, written many cherems, like different things that were said, like don't study it, it's not good. We spoke about this in our last conversation, like the dangers of Kabbalah.
Yes.
Let's dive into these questions.
It's,
right?
it's interesting.
Who
because,
are
like,
you? Do you have free will?
Yeah, okay.
Can we have a relationship with God? What's the purpose?
I don't
Right?
think we have a choice.
Is
when
all
it-
of
Wait, wait,
reality
I
an
don't think
illusion?
I don't think we have a choice when it comes to having a relationship with God. You're gonna have a relationship with God either whether you like it or not. You are. That's how you understand God, by the way. I think
But is it a positive
you need to
relationship?
okay.
Are you doing?
It's a good point.
Is it you know?
I mean, that's how. See, the thing is, I'm already like there. I'm already like believing in God. So like, I see how I could relate to Him without having to stress about like, what the heck is He, right?
It's not what he is. Yeah, we don't want to we don't
Who
want to
is He
know
to me?
exactly
It's
who's he to you.
believing. Yeah.
Who is he to you? You sure you know everything about who he is to
No,
you?
I don't need to.
Maybe you do. Maybe if you know what he is to you, and you would think about it more often, it would inspire you to
hmm I'd
to
say that's a
connect in a
dangerous
different way.
path, but not for me. But for other people, it's a dangerous path because then they could start like really freaking out. Like, what the heck is the point of life?
But maybe there is a very deep point. Maybe that's the point. That there is a purpose, there is a meaning, and when you know that meaning, it drives you. It
Yes.
drives you forward.
Mm.
It pulls you in the positive direction. It pulls you in the direction of goodness. Anyways, so what are we jumping to? We want to know what you are, right? Does a person have free will? So what should we go? Should we speak about free will first?
Sure.
You
Let's
start
go.
answering it. You start answering yourself that that God is just different. The way time exists with God is just it's a different ball game, right? Um,
Yeah, that was an interesting.
the way some people look at it is like imagine so saying that God knows the future, right? So imagine you see a person sleeping on train tracks, right? And and you see a train coming from far away, and this person is sleeping. So you know that that person is going to die,
Yeah.
right? But just because you know, it doesn't mean that you're forcing his choice. It's just that you know the person still has choice, right?
You just know there's no way you could wake him up.
So in a sense, so in other words, really, knowledge and choice are separated from one another.
Uh, can I add something, or you're not done?
Sure.
God, God can't. You're basically saying that God can't do anything about our free choice.
If God gave us real free choice,
Wow, that's such an interesting a point. Because you're saying that God's watching us and He knows what's going to happen, but He can't do anything about it.
no,
You literally just
no, no, no,
limited God.
no. God could do something about it, right? But the fact that He knows what's going to happen, it doesn't mean that He does do something about it,
Okay,
right?
then that gives the perfect reason to be like, oh, God, you just killed my mom. God, how could you? You could have changed this, and you just let it happen. How dare
Yeah,
you?
God,
I'm
God.
not going to listen to anything you say.
I think even better, God created the concept of life and death. God created the concept of pain, right? You get it? So
Mm-hmm.
God could have created death, but skip out the pain.
Yeah, and
He
he
could have
also
he
he
could have
also
made it that we don't care.
he also created rebellion against
Exactly.
him.
Exactly. And he created a
It's
logic.
see
He
that
created
there.
logic.
It goes back to the point that there's no point of having this conversation because he's creating this conversation. He's making it happen. That's why I'm telling you, let's just okay. This is really. I'm not sure if I want to say this, but like, let's just live our life. This we can't control this. This is what it is. This
But
is how it is.
you're going
And
back.
I know. I'm just saying that like
You need to
he's
make your mind up. You need to
created
make
this.
you need to make your mind up if you think there's a point or not a point, right? So I made the point that there is a point, right? There is a point in learning about God because when you know who you are, you know how to drive your life, how to drive your emotions, what you should do, how to make choices,
But the more I talk
right?
about this, the more I see that there is no point. That that there is no control. That this is how it is. Do we have free choice? could I don't know. I'm lost right now. Okay, go. I'm lost. Do we have let's go start with that. Do we have free choice?
Yes, human beings have free choice.
Okay, so explain how we have free choice and God knows what we're going to do in 25 years.
Right. So first of all, I just want to clear up, in case anybody is in this. There's a concept in science called determinism, right? That everything is determined, everything is predetermined. That if you know the space, if you know the place and the direction and the amount of energy that there is in every single piece of matter in the entire universe, right? And you would know, there's no human that can really know that, but if somebody was able to know everything, the position of every single thing in the universe, and the energy that it has and the direction it's going, then you would be able to calculate the future forever. There was such a position for a couple of years in the scientific community. But then came quantum mechanics, which introduced this idea that things are not determined. Things are in a state of in other words, that quantum particles, they're not in a specific place. They're a wave of probability, right? We're not really going to get into that. The point is that at this subatomic core of all of reality, the main building blocks of everything that's around, they exist in a very weird way that we don't really know how they work. And it's not that we don't know how they work, it's that we see that they work in an illogical form. We can't calculate what's going on. And this basically turned things on their back. It was like a very weird situation that when you know something, then that's what makes it have happened in the past, right? So the situation would kind of be like this. If you go into a forest, which nobody was ever in, and you find over there a tree that fell down, so the tree, only when you discovered it, only when you saw it that it fell down, that's when it actually got its existence of a tree that fell down. Now, it fell down perhaps 5 years ago, right? But it could have not fallen down 5 years ago, right? But when you saw it, your knowledge made it that this tree fell down 5 years ago, and now it's laying there on the floor.
It's interesting.
And if at that moment, for some reason, your knowledge would have seen this tree in a way that it didn't fall down, then it would have not fallen down.
You're trying to say that like we are the. It sounds like you're saying that we are the creators of the world.
It's a very weird situation.
By our presence.
It's a very weird situation, and I looked into it a while ago. I'm not sure I have the words right now. This is science. This is pure science.
So a human being decided this is.
This is a human being that was done with scientific method. I don't want to get into a scientific discussion.
Yeah.
But this is a real scientific thing,
okay.
which was come up with with the scientific method. It was tested, and they saw basically that things work differently when they're being observed versus when they're not being observed.
Oh, I don't get that.
It's very weird.
I don't understand that.
It's like when something is not being observed, it acts as probability, right? If you need to make the assumption of what happens in a sealed room, you put in a massive sealed room. There's trees in there, there's soil in there, you put in fake sunlight and everything, and you leave it there. You put in a bunch of, you make a life chain with a bunch of different types of insects and stuff, and you let it happen, right? So there's a lot of different possibilities that can happen there. So as long as nobody knows what's going on over there, all of those possibilities are possible. Anything that's possible is possible. Once somebody sees it, then whatever one of the options that was possible becomes actual. Whatever. It's very weird. It's not something that the human mind can understand how that operates. And the point I'm bringing this up is just to say that if somebody is being bothered by the scientific concept of determinism, they should know that this doesn't stand in the way.
What doesn't stand in the way?
The scientific concept of determinism, because there is a scientific concept of non-determinism, right? So let's get into free. So humans have free will, according to Kabbalah and probably most religions. Humans have free will. God gives us free will that we can choose right from wrong. That we can, in other words, there's certain things that we have free will, right? We don't have the free will to snap our fingers and become rich. We have the free will to choose what we do with our time and what we prioritize, right? That's the free will that we have. The question is, if God knows everything, knows the future, so then how can we have this free will, right? You kind of gave the answer before, right? But let's just touch on it, right? So us humans, we exist in time and space, right? God created time and space from scratch, which means that in God's world, there is no time and space, right? God creates it to a certain extent from his own spirituality. God creates time and space and forms time and space, but God himself remains beyond time and space. And it's almost like time and space exist inside of God, right? God is constantly giving energy to the entire existence of time and space. So that's how God knows the future, because God knows what time in the future looks like, because God is beyond time and space, and all of time and space exists within God, including all past time and all future time exists within God. So God knows what's going to happen in the future, right? But in what way does God know what's going to happen in the future, right? In a way that, in a certain sense, you can look at it as a human as if it already happened, because there's no past, present, and future in God, right? God is absolutely infinite. God is beyond time and space. There's no past, there's no future. It's all just there, right? So when God creates us, right? When God creates us as humans with free will and puts us into a specific moment in time, right? Then at that moment, we have free will to shape that moment of time, to shape that moment of time.
It's hard to understand.
And we could get into this conversation. What are you as a human, right? And I think one thing you can say is it's very much connected to our consciousness and the fact that we have free will, right? In other words, one of the things that makes us who we are is our free will. The fact that I know who I am, I experience myself, and I can choose. I can choose where I'm going. That makes me from, instead of being somebody who's watching a show, to somebody who's actually free, right? Because if you're just watching a show, then I would ask you this question: who are you? Who are you? And why does this you need to exist? Why does God need to have you watching this show if you don't have any choice in it? What's the point? But the moment that you has free will, then that you suddenly has meaning. You're not watching a show. You're the one making the decisions. So you are in the driver's seat, right?
It's a complicated concept. I'm not really understanding it. Because like once when you go down, I don't
The
get.
guy who makes a movie, yeah?
Yeah.
You're watching the movie. You're in the middle of the movie. You don't know what's going to happen in the end, right? Does the guy in the movie need you?
No.
The actor, he doesn't need you. The character in the movie, he doesn't need you, right? You're watching, right? So if a human being doesn't have free will, and God puts you into a body without free will, just to observe what's going to happen, what's the point? What's the you, right? So there is free will. And that's really what your identity is. Your identity is that you can choose what you're going to do.
But the thing is that you know there's free will. Every human knows there's free will because you believe that you moving your hand is you. So why drive yourself crazy? I think like I'm having a hard time understanding the concept
I think
of what
right
you're
now,
trying to tell me. But I think I understand it myself. Like,
we're trying to address the fact that if God knows the future,
yeah,
right, then how could it be that you have free will, right? So the fact that you feel like you have free will,
that I don't understand,
right,
and I'm not
and that's where
understanding
so this is
your
something.
answer.
So this is something that this is something. So God is beyond time and space, right?
Yes.
The fact that we have free will comes from God's power. In other words, a human would not be able to have free will on his own.
Yes.
It's not a human attribute to have free will. It's something which must come from God, right? Like, although all of reality is created,
I just remembered I answered my own question because you're basically saying that God created free choice. He created everything. So there's no point of trying to understand how he's able to know the future because he's created the future. He's created time. He's created free choice. He's created everything.
right? But if he created the future, then doesn't that mean that the future is
But
already
he also
determined?
created free choice.
I think people still ask this question,
Yeah, I
right?
know.
And the answer is that there's a part. The soul is a godly being. In other words, the soul also exists beyond time and space. And when the soul comes into the body, right, the soul gets to operate inside of time and space. But when we think of ourselves, when we remove all of the layers of our body and all of the layers of our human temptations and the way we understand things as humans in a very temporal, a very body type of way, and all that we have left is just the consciousness of our soul, that soul exists beyond time and space. In other words, what are you? You're not a being that experiences life. You are you. I think you were speaking to me about this in the beginning. You're not your feelings, you're not your thoughts, you're not your
Yeah.
actions. You're you, right?
The
You're
choices you make.
The even the choices you make are the choices you make. The feelings that you feel are the feelings that you feel. That's not what
Yes.
you are.
Yes.
Right? But what is that you? That you is something that exists beyond time and beyond space and beyond all the experiences that we have in our body. And that's where free will sits. Free will sits, and it comes from in other words, the power of free will comes from a place which is beyond time and space. And it's coming directly from God, which exists beyond time and space, and creates this soul, which gives you life, and exists in that way beyond time and space, and exists in time and space with the power of free will, right? And that's how you're able to change, so to speak, the future.
I still don't understand. Okay, I can accept. So, yeah, I mean, have you explained? Because like I still don't understand how. Is it is it God giving us the ability of Himself to us? Is He giving us Him
in a
to
certain sense?
use?
Yes.
We are Him, right? We are the free choice. We're doing His work. We are Him. Does that work?
It's very hard to.
Does that work, by the way?
You are God?
Yes. We are making His decisions for Him in a lower, much smaller way. But
I wanted to think of it. I wanted to think of it like that at one point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's 100% accurate, though.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
those
I'm just
words,
taking in all this information and I'm trying to understand it in my way.
right?
That's what's happening here. And
There was a time that I wanted to think of it
yeah,
that way.
sorry.
But you have to be very careful. In other words, what is the conclusion going to be from this? Is the conclusion going to be from this that I'm God, so I can do whatever I want?
No. We're part of God. That's what
Exactly.
I'm saying. We're
But
part of him.
but exactly, we're a part. You're a
We're an
part of God.
organism.
You're a part of God, but God doesn't
Oh
have
God,
any
I
parts.
just have something. I just
God
have
doesn't have
something.
any parts.
God
Right?
created time, right?
God created time. Exactly.
Time is not limits. It's not now or then or it's everything, because He created it, right? We are the creation. We are the mechanism. He's already created it. We are His. We are Him, not as we're God. We are His vision. Because then you can go back to being like, how dare you do it this way? But if you say that you're God, not your God, but you were part of Him, and we're doing His job because we are part of Him. Oh God, it doesn't work, because you could always have these questions about like blaming Him for certain things. But like, it is an interesting concept. What do you think? What do you think about? Do you understand what I'm saying? That like, we are. He's created this whole organism, right? And it's running, but not running as a machine. It's running as a mind. It's running as Him. He's running the machine. We are running the machine. We
Right.
are Him. We are making our choices like He's making His choices, because He created choice. But we're creating choice by doing the choices. I don't know. I'm going crazy. I'm going from thought to thought. I don't. I'd say it's a hard thing to understand. Some people find it probably easier, but I'm having.
No, it's not. So I was actually just thinking about this today. Understanding these concepts is not complicated. It's deep. There's a difference between complicated and deep.
I agree.
Complicated is when something has a lot of details, right? Like when you need to build a rocket ship, right? There's a lot of details that need to go into that. Exactly which material and how much, which fuel. There's so many people. There's so many different specialists, which each one needs to know to specialize in a specific thing. That's called complicated. Sophisticated, right? Sophisticated is when somebody has a lot of sophistication, right? But then deep is when you need to, when it doesn't have a lot of details. It's just you need to get the thing, what it actually is. What is deep? What does deep mean if something is deep? When something is deep, it means that you need to dig deep and move away all of the things that are covering that thing deep down. Right? So like it's almost like you need to move away all of the distractions. You need to move away all the sophistication covering up on this thing. And I think that that's really how we find who we really are, how we find our soul, how we find, the truth of all these things, the depth. We need to move. We need to. How do we think of ourselves? We think of ourselves in our experiences, in our bodies, right? So we need to think of ourselves not as our human experiences, not as our emotions, which are specific things. We need to move. We need to move those away. We need to brush them to the side, and then what do we find in the end? We find this pure me. It's just me. It's nothing. What is it? It's just me. I am me, right? I have a body. I have experiences, right? That's what me is, right? And that's a deep concept. And that's really how we understand all these things. So when we ask all these questions, what is, like, how do we have free will, right? Free will, if God knows everything, right? It's not necessarily a question that we need to look at with sophistication. In other words, it's not going to be 1 + 1 = 2, right? Right? If you go with that way of understanding that 1 + 1 = 2, then you'll say, okay, God knows the future. If God knows the future, that means it's already determined, right? And that means I don't have choice, right? Now, even that really has a question, because knowledge is not really connected with with choice, which perhaps you can say that's a deep way of looking
What do
at
you mean
things.
knowledge is not connected with choice?
The fact that God knows the future does not mean that I can't have choice. I can
Uh-huh.
choose. So the way I look at it is, you are you in the present. You're you right now, right? Now, that you that exists right now has free will from the power of God, right? Which is completely infinite and completely beyond time and space. So, really, anything that exists in time and space doesn't make sense to have free will. Only something that exists beyond time and space doesn't make sense for that to have free will, right? It has a
Because I
power.
have a power from God, I'm beyond power and space.
If you think about it, yeah, everything that exists in time and space alone, anything that exists
Yeah,
on
but
a
the
body
the thing
level,
is that like God created time and space, and God is time and space because God didn't create things out of nothing. He created it with him through himself. Am I right?
yes, in a
So
sense.
that means you can't even explain it how like, oh God, I went too deep that I lost myself. But we're not time.
So,
You're explaining, you're basically saying that we are like God. Like we not like God, but
we
we
have we
have that.
have we have power from God,
Yeah.
and it's unified with God.
Yeah, but
And
everything
because
has
because
that because he
God,
created it. That's all I'm
exactly,
saying.
because God is not made of parts. God himself is singular, right? So that means that any part of him, if we are a part of God, what it means is we're one with God. That we can't understand in our bodies which operate within sophistication, within time and space, how it's possible. We don't understand how that works. Understanding means to take a bunch of details, put them together, and then you get a picture of what something is, right?
Mhm.
But what we need to do is we need to look at these things beyond the details. We need to remove all the dust. We need to remove all the, in order to uncover the depth, right? We need to move all the coverings, and then we uncover this depth, right? So the me which exists right now, right, is the only real thing that exists. And that real me is beyond time and space. And that real me has freedom of choice, right? And I choose
And I
what
can
I'm going to
I
do.
can accept that because God created time. That was my question. That was my answer in the beginning. God created time. It's not the concept that we understand. It's the concept that it's all the same. It's all one. 1915, 2015. I don't know. It's all one organism um, that work that is being created at the same time. I don't know.
Okay.
What I'm really thinking about is like, is time travel possible? Because that God, or is this the same thing? Is this the same trend? Is this the same trend that God knows exactly what's going to happen?
Is time travel possible?
Yeah. Einstein. What Einstein said, that if you
Yeah.
travel in the speed of light, is that true? Do you think that's true? He literally said, if you travel in the speed of light, you'll be able to see what's in the future.
It's not that you'll be able to see what's in the future. It's just that he says that time slows down in your own experience. So by the time you're back, it'll be the future.
Oh, yeah.
We'll never be able to go back in time. So you're not really able to see the future.
God can see the future.
Be able to. It's kind of like putting yourself in a freezer, right?
Yeah. And waiting. Yeah, and then you see the future.
Waking up 100 years
Yeah,
later.
because of our bodies. Our bodies are part of the past, so you're skipping to the future. Does that make
Right.
sense to you?
What?
Our bodies are part of this time. So you if you reserve your body, if you freeze your body in time and space, don't let it continue, don't let it age.
Right.
You are traveling through time, future.
Yeah.
But going through the past, going back in time.
Right.
Because what's the difference?
So is it possible? Is it possible to go back in time? Right?
Yeah.
So it's funny. I thought about that. And it's very interesting. I think the answer is yes. It's possible to go back in time. But in order to see why the answer is yes, we'll need to figure out what the point of the question is, right? When we understand what we're really asking, then we'll realize that the answer is yes. You're able to go back in time.
What are we asking?
What are you asking? So what do you want to go back in time for? What are you really asking?
I never said I wanted to go back in time.
If somebody, what are the different reasons people might want to go back in time?
To see it.
So I think some of the reasons people might want to go back in time is, I want to continue living my life, but I wonder what it was like in this event,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in that sense, is it possible for every single person to access the back in time? Well, think about it, us today. We do get to see certain things back in time. You watch a video which was recorded many years ago, you are able to see what happened back in time. You can access that information, right?
That's not the answer people are looking for.
But what people want to know is certain times in history which weren't recorded, right? Visually,
yeah.
right? So you want to see that, right? So we do know that.
Oh wait, okay. Let's stop it. Going back in time. When people say going back in time, they're not saying, "Oh, I want to see it," or through a video screen of a video that was taken 40 years ago. No, we want to be there. We want to be physically there. That's what people mean.
So
When
wait a
they
second, we're breaking down all the different
I know,
options.
but like,
so regarding we're breaking down all the different options.
okay, fine.
If this was the option that you were thinking of, you want to just see what happened there, right? You want to stay who you are. You don't want to lose your place here in life, right? You want to just know what happened there. So as we said before, there's this process of how within God there's no time, and then God creates time, and it's this like process. If you're able to tap into that spiritual energy, then yes, you're able to see every piece of energy that was coming from God's infinite spirituality in every single time. If you tune in to the real essence of the energy of everything, you're able to see every moment. And then you're also able to see the future, you're able to see the past, right? So that's an answer to that question.
What do you mean? What are you saying tune into? Tune into what? Tune into
God creates time, right?
Yeah, but how are you supposed to tune into
If you
God?
if you tune in, because we said that your soul, right? Your soul is spiritual. Your soul is coming from God, and your soul really
Yeah,
exists
I
beyond
literally
time.
like thought about this while you were saying it,
If you're able to tune into that,
but you can't.
so there are certain people, if you become a very holy person, a very spiritual person, like a tzaddik, then you're able to see the past and the future, right? You're able to experience it because you've tuned into a deep spiritual energy which exists beyond time and space.
But like, let's be honest, like no one's looking for that answer.
Okay, very good.
And by the
But
way,
we're going through the
according to
options.
Hasidus, you can't be a tzaddik. Am I wrong or am I right?
You're wrong.
Because what I remember is that you could be a Bainani, that tzaddik's a tzaddik. So you're saying
If you say that you can't be a tzaddik, you're right, and if you say that you could be a tzaddik, you're right, because the general understanding is that you can't become a tzaddik, right? But if you really work hard on yourself and you're really trying your best, then you're able to pray to God to make you a tzaddik in order to transform you.
Yeah, but that's
your
not
human
the
experience.
But fine, this is not a realistic thing for
Right.
people, and it's not an answer.
Right. So, but the question is, can time travel be possible? If it was for that goal, then the answer is yes. You are able to tap into that spiritual energy of the past and see it. Okay, but most people, when they're asking, I think some people, when they're asking about time travel, that's really what they want to know. They want to know if you're able to go back in time. And who knows, maybe there will be some sort of technology that will be discovered sometime.
That's the question. Is it even possible?
Wait a second. Maybe there will be a technology which will be discovered sometime that you can figure out. We were speaking before about how the future is not determined, right? But maybe there's going to be a technology which you can You can backtrack all the light that came from somewhere, and you'll be able to somehow see. I don't know. It's probably. It sounds a little weird. It sounds theoretical. Well, who knows? Maybe
No, but
maybe
it
it's possible.
sounds real. It makes sense, like light. Interesting.
It could be that there's preservation of historical events in the atmosphere, right? Or deep in the
No,
ground.
because that already happened.
Anyways,
The future is always the mystery here,
right.
but stuff that already happened.
So let's tap into another question about time travel. So can we can you move back in time? So the question is, just go back in time and stay there. Yeah? Do you plan on changing anything there? Do you want to change the past? Or is it that you don't like life today? Life is so noisy, everyone's complaining, people are so bigoted. I want to go back in time. I want to go to a time in history where things were peaceful, people lived on the farm, there was no technology, people had a life with family. I want to go live back then. I don't want to change history. I just want to live back then, free me, myself, and that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's two ways you can look at this. Okay, there's two ways you can look at it. Either that will cause current history to change, because if you go back in time and you marry somebody, then do those kids exist in this time in history, right?
Mm-hmm. It would have to be a loop.
Right? You get that? You get the problem?
Yes, it'd have to be a loop.
So, is that possible? Can you change history in the past? Can you go back into
You would
history in
have
the
to.
past?
You would
Can you
have to
go back
change
to history in the past?
You would have to change history.
But the question is, what's the goal? Is it do you want to
What's the
change?
goal?
Do you want to change
What's
current
the
history
difference?
or not?
What's the goal is? What's the difference? Can you do it or could you can't? Could you can or could you not?
So I would say the answer to that is no.
Because
You can't go back in history just to live back in history.
God is right now looking at God's now. I'm about to bring God into this. Because God knows the future, He knows the past. And in the past He knew the future. And He knew the past.
What I'm saying is that
From when I'm sorry.
God has
yeah.
a purpose for every single person at every single time at every single place, right? So we're not thinking right now, is it possible physically, right? Going back in time obviously is not possible physically, right? But and perhaps why is that? Because God has a plan for every single person, every single place. So if your purpose is right here and now, you can't tap into the energy which exists beyond time and space in order to go to a different time and place. Because that's a lie. In other words, the truth of your
Existence.
how do you tap into an energy that is beyond time and space? By tapping into your true self. But once you've tapped into your true self, you'll see, it'll be obvious that your purpose is right here and now. You won't want to go back.
This is
in time
where
and space.
you are.
In other words,
This is
your
where
essence,
you are.
your essence will tell you not to go back in time and space. This is where I am exactly. Who am I? I'm me right now in the present.
Part of. This is what you're part of.
So now, really, if you think about it, I think the most impactful version of time travel would be changing history, changing a historical event, right?
Yes.
So then the question becomes, can you change a historical event without disrupting all of reality, right? And let's see how that might be possible, right? And to that, the answer is yes. You're able to change a moment in history in a way that it changes forever. and it doesn't disrupt reality. And how is that?
Free choice.
Imagine a person does a sin, right? You do something wrong. You do something bad you shouldn't have done. Can you change that? What does that mean? That means that you've dented history. You've dented time with a moment of darkness, right? Let's look at it from the scope of the soul. You have a soul which is infinite, it's light, it's spiritual, it's good. And at that moment, it's dark because you've covered the soul. You ignored the soul. You said, soul, right now you don't exist. So it's a dark moment in history and it's dented, seemingly forever. How can you change the past, right? But you could. You could change that past. And how is it possible to change that past? If you're trying to get in tune with your soul, with your true self, what you really are. You're trying to get in tune with the essence of your soul and your connection with God. And you're noticing that moment in history, when you're doing this inner search of self, you notice that there's this moment in history which is dark, which is a dent, which is a blemish. And you say, if my real true self exists beyond time and space, right, and is a shining being, right, and there's a moment in time and space which is dark. In other words, it's a dented piece of history which is darkening on my true self. So what happens is it's almost like that dark moment is not allowing you to reach your real true self because you've dented it, right? You've done a sin so strong to your true identity. You've disconnected from yourself so much that it's just dented, right? Perhaps you can think of this like a person who, God forbid, chops off a limb. That's it. The person lost that limb, right? It's not part of him. He'll never be able to be the same person that he was before, right? But when it comes to the soul, what happens is, in this situation, when a person realizes he dented his true reality, the truth of all of reality, then he's trying to get to his true self. He'll feel so bad. A person could come to a level of self-shame. He'll feel so bad and so pained by the fact that he did this thing to disconnect from his true self, right? Which will make that moment shine. Why? Because why do you regret that so much? What was the problem at that moment? What made that moment a dent? What made it dark? What made that moment dark? The fact that you were, at that moment, disconnecting from yourself, from your real, true self, from what you really should be doing, right? And now you're trying to reconnect with your real, true self. But there's this dent over there, and that dent is making you feel really bad, right? What does that mean? That means that your true identity, who are you really identifying with now? You're really identifying with your true self, to the extent that that is being painful for you. So what happens is, that moment which was painful for you, that moment which was a dent, transforms into is a catapult to the fact that right now you're tapping into a deeper part of yourself, which makes that dent shine instead of being dark. That makes sense?
I was waiting for you to say that, like, if you, like, do something, then you're going to be healing yourself. And then you'll be able to change time. I don't know. If you do something to your soul.
Imagine this person, yeah? Imagine this person.
What are you saying?
Imagine a person would have
Saying-
never sinned against himself,
Yeah.
right? He would have never done this thing to disconnect, to
He
make this
would
dent
have not.
in his own history. Yeah, imagine he was always good, right? So what happens? What happens is he just continues living his life.
Yeah.
And when he decides to connect with his real self, then he's just always his real self because he's never really made a dent. But when a person makes a real dent in his own identity and then regrets it, what that means is that he's connecting with himself in a deeper level, in a level which is far beyond what that dent could have done to him. Because really, what is that dent doing? That dent is basically saying, I'm not me. I'm disconnecting from my true real self, my true real self, which is beyond time and space, which is pure, which is good. That's what this dent is. That's what this darkness is. That's what this blemish is, right? But the fact that right now you're regretting it means that right now you're in tune with a place which is even higher than that, than that moment of darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And without that dent, you wouldn't have reached it. You wouldn't have reached that very deep that deep connection with yourself. But because you have that moment of darkness, it's connecting you with a deeper part of you.
Mm-hmm.
So you've transformed that moment from darkness into light.
But that's just changing something.
So you've changed the past. Why? There was a dark energy in that moment. But now that dark energy is what catapulted you to do good.
But that's something that's always going to be there. You're not changing time. Or are you changing your soul from then? How are you changing time? By using your
You
past.
made it possible for your real true identity, for your soul to shine in that moment. How did you make that possible? Because that moment made you reach a part of your true identity, which you would have never have reached if not for that moment of darkness. So that moment of darkness, when it causes you to truly regret and be pained by the fact that you disconnected it from your real true self, then that moment itself shines. And that is the one that gives you this deep connection with your true self right now. So you've changed time.
It's a hefty topic.
And you haven't distorted reality.
Yeah, I don't get it. I think like you're trying to. Are you like saying that like you can affect your soul is connected throughout all time? So if you connect, if you've done something bad and you fixed it, are you fixing the past? No? Is that it? Is that what you're saying? In a simpler...
You're fixing the past, yeah.
Is that what you were literally saying?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's not what people are looking for, but when it comes to changing the past, but that's like a different answer.
Exactly. People when the answers they're looking for is like with rocket ships and stuff, right?
Or like literally going back to 1940.
We're having a conversation over here
Yeah.
about how you can do that through tapping into the depths of yourself.
Yeah, and like that's understanding how the world works through Kabbalah.
Exactly.
And then you see the truth and how the world works, and you don't even think about the way time travel you think before it worked, like thinking about how through Kabbalah how the world's working, and then you could see you could do that through that. Okay, I understand that.